state lines with hillbillies and guns. It's been a hell of a ride and a whole lot of fun. They gave me many names down there in Dixie, but the main one that stuck on me was whiskey.
And welcome to another episode of the Bourbon and Ballistics Podcast, the show where we talk a little about whiskey, a little about firearms, and a whole lot of everything in between. I'm your host, Joel Potter. I invite you to sit back, relax, and pour yourself a glass as we talk some bourbon and ballistics. Today's show, a very special one. A new friend to me, a friend of a friend, and now a friend that I think we can definitely say that. We've gone through almost an entire show, had to kind of start over, had some faulty equipment, but Destiny Strong, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for staying around after that. You could have run away at any point, but you're still here. As we near the end of Military Appreciation Month and Mental Health Awareness Month, today's episode dives into one of the most pressing and often silent battles our veterans face. It's the battle within. Today I'm honored to sit down with Marine Corps veteran Destiny Strong, a woman who's walked through darkness and now helps to light the path of others. Through programs like Healing Arenas, PB Abbate, the SAVE Initiative, Destiny is redefining what it means to come home. So Destiny, we have already cracked into this bottle, but as we get through this episode, why I picked this bottle for you is going to become a little bit more clear. Today we picked the Pinhook 2023 Bourbon Resolve, which was a 16.2 hand horse, bay in color, and a colt. So with every guest, I do try to find something that's going to kind of tie in what we're going to talk about to the whiskey bottle that we bring to the show. So I'm going to do a little bit of work on this bottle. We've already got to try it. So I was telling in the beginning that I was a little nervous that there was mixed reviews online about what this was going to taste like. And so I was pleasantly surprised. So Pinhook, great job.
I'm a fan.
We're gonna definitely keep drinking it for sure. So the mash bill is a 75% corn, 15% rye, and a 10% barley. It's 3 years of age and comes in at a 101.48 proof. Definitely drinks 100 proof. I'll say that right now. This bourbon is not just a drink, it's a story, a narrative that intertwines the legacy of Kentucky's horse racing with the art of whiskey making. Pinhook Bourbon was founded in 2011 by a group of passionate people that were wanting to craft whiskey in a new way. And they got their start by purchasing barrels from the Lawrenceburg distillers in Indiana and aged them in Kentucky. By 2017, those were all gone. So they started producing their own at the historic Castle and Key, formerly known as Old Taylor Distillery, which had laid dormant in 50 years. And little known fact, it was the first distillery to open back up. No, that was a terrible part. No, I think that's how it worked. The move marked the revival of a legendary site in the beginning of Pinhook's own distillation journey. The Bourbon Resolve is the flagship, and it pays homage to a thoroughbred horse that we, again, 16.2 hands tall, and symbolizing both strength and grace.
My kind of horse.
That's a good-looking horse. This is tie beautifully into our conversation today. Destiny works with a group called Healing Arenas, which we'll get into, and utilizes retired racehorses. So that's the tie-in. And now let's talk about you a little bit.
Okay.
Destiny, let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Before you got into helping others as much as you are now, you had a journey, a career in the military. Can you lead me into your start with the military and what you did there and how we got to where we are today? Let's start from the beginning.
Sure. So I was an Arabic and Pashto linguist in the Marine Corps. It's not a very big career field, very small world, very niche skill sets. I was taught both of those languages by the military, by all native speakers from those countries. Pashto, for those who don't know it, is Afghanistan. I get that question a lot.
I wouldn't have known. Yeah. I would guess, but probably not be right.
And it was a really great career field to be in, and it gave me more of a human glimpse at the enemy than I think most Marines get, because I learned from all native speakers for 2.5 years over the course of the 2 languages.
What made you decide to get into the military?
I didn't have a great start to life. I was a drug baby. I was in foster care, adopted eventually, and had a lot of struggles. And I think that theme is really common in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps is a branch that isn't offering big sign-on packages. You're living the hardest life you can in the military as a branch. And it takes a special kind of crazy person to sign up to it for it. And it drew me in. I'm a person that likes challenge, and I don't want to take the easy way out in anything. So it really appealed to me.
I'm going to shut these down real quick. Looks like you're getting
Okay,
almost in
thank
your
you.
eyeballs. Yeah.
It also gave me shit talking rights for the rest of my life. So, yeah.
Well, and we'll definitely dive into that too, because that is always fun. Okay, so you get in there, you get in the Marines, you get out, you get deployed out there, and now you're learning a skill set. Mm-hmm. You get out. I mean, essentially after you get home, what does that look like for you? So
I transitioned out like 4 months after I got back home from Afghanistan in 2000. My deployment was in 2012. I transitioned out in early 2013. The career field that I was in, everybody who was in was saying, oh, you're just gonna walk into a job, you have a clearance, you have all these skills, you speak 2 languages, it's gonna be great. And that wasn't what I found when I transitioned. I was unemployed for 6 months, which was a really big mental health struggle for me. And it was a really challenging thing. And transitioning out of the Marine Corps, especially the Marine Corps becomes part of your identity, and it still is. And it was like I lost my family and my skill set and my identity all in one. And it was a really challenging time for me.
So what kind of challenges, I mean, with all that's happening, I mean, what was the hardest part for you? I mean, what was the hardest thing for the transition?
I think I didn't understand how much of a mental health struggle I was going to have with my deployment, with, I don't want to say deprogramming, but deprogramming from the Marine Corps. And I left doing something that was super important. I supported the National Intelligence Mission, a drone targeting cell. We were called like guardian angels because we provided indications and warnings to ground forces and tasked them out to go take out Taliban leaders that we thought would be influential in the battlefield. So I went from that to literally applying at grocery stores and not getting a job just because of the market I was in. So it really knocked me down and made me feel like I hadn't done anything important. And in the Marine Corps you work and you're always trying to get better and accomplish the mission, and to not have a mission was really challenging for me.
That seems to be a really common theme, I think, when people get home. I think with any branch, it's just trying to figure out
any
things
branch.
like deprogramming. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're home, and are you self-aware at that point that you're kind of in a weird spot? I mean, what?
Not at all.
Oblivious.
Totally oblivious. I was having like night terrors, flashbacks, all the things that would be stereotypical PTSD veteran transitioning out of the Marine Corps. I had no idea that I was struggling. That was just the mindset I was in. I worked as a defense contractor for a while after I got out, so I was still very much had a foot into that world. And that's just how I thought existing was.
Okay. So what leads you to start becoming more self-aware? I mean, how do you start on that journey to start finding yourself?
I think it was, things kind of came to a culmination for me when I got a divorce. I moved cross country. I was a single mom for the first time in my life. I moved back home to Nevada. That was 5 years after I transitioned.
Okay.
And that was what I would consider my real transition out of the military. Because like I said, I was around military people all the time. And it took me being home and isolated to realize that there was some cracks in the foundation. And to realize that things weren't exactly right,
Okay.
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does that play, and we don't have to go into it if you don't want to, but I mean, with the divorce, I mean, I know that, law enforcement and military, I mean, they have very high divorce rates. And
Yeah.
do you think that was, I mean, was your spouse also military, or?
He was military. We got married a week before we deployed. I'm very glad that I did it for the reasons that I did it. We weren't deployed in the same area at the same time, but I had somebody who was in country who kind of understood what I was going through. I understood what he was going through. And I'm immensely grateful that we had that support structure for each other. But once I transitioned out, and I guess my kind of revolution started a little bit earlier than just the divorce, because that's kind of what led to it. We were just two people going in different directions. But yeah, that lifestyle in the military is so high stress, and it takes a really strong partner bond to make that work and make it last the test of time and literally battles to continue on.
Mm-hmm. So you start kind of doing the self-reflection, and you start looking out for programs, or?
I will say that I didn't start doing self-reflection voluntarily.
Okay.
So when I moved back to Nevada, I had to get reestablished at the VA here in Reno. And at the time, I don't know if they're still doing it. I hope they are. But they had these social workers who would bring new veterans in and bring them. It was like the OEF office. And they would run you through like a PTSD screening.
Okay.
And so this very nice social worker is running me through all these questions. And I just answered honestly because I had no idea what it was. If I had known, I probably wouldn't have. I think that's very common in the military or in the veteran community. But I answered honestly, and this lady told me I was ranking really high on the scale for PTSD. And I didn't accept that at first because my deployment was done in a classified facility. I literally sat at a desk. There was a couple of attacks that happened while I was there that where I was in physical danger, but compared to the normal Marine Corps deployment, I was working an office job. So for me, I thought I didn't rate to have PTSD. I had all my limbs. I wasn't in a firefight. I didn't get blown up. I don't have PTSD. That's what I thought at the time. And I think all the stressors that I had going on in my life, I had a 2-year-old on my own at the time.
That
full time. I think it kind of propelled me to realize that things weren't right and made me want to seek things out to be better for her. So that's kind of what propelled me on a journey of trying to figure out what was happening. I think something that's really common is it's not just the military that causes PTSD, it's everything encompassing in your life that's happened. So I had a really rough foundation, right? And then the military just added more cracks to that. And it finally came to a boiling point when I finally transitioned. So, yeah.
So how did you find, and I'll let you do, because you're going to do way better at this than me. So PB Abbate, you had mentioned that in our text message when we were setting this up, and I spent, the last couple of weeks just watching as many videos, learning as much about this, because I had never heard of PB Abbate before.
Yeah.
So I'll let you do the introduction to the program, because it is so freaking cool, and I just maybe it's something that everybody needs to hear about, obviously.
So it's PB Abbate for short. Patrol Base is what we call PBs when you're forward. So Patrol Base Abbate was created in honor of a Marine Scout sniper who was killed in Afghanistan in 2010. He's a Navy Cross recipient, awarded posthumously, unfortunately. His name was Sergeant Matthew Abbate, and he was an exceptional Marine, exceptional at his job, the kind of guy who could probably make you feel really small, but from what I've heard from the people who got to serve with him, he was the kind of guy that made you feel 10 feet taller after you talked with him. So his Navy Cross citation is exceptional. If you have the chance to read it, it's mind-blowing that it's not a Medal of Honor, but that's a very common downgrade for the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps really got to earn things. But his captain from that deployment was Captain Tom Schumann, is now Lieutenant Colonel Tom Schumann, who is the future Commando IC for the Marine Corps. When COVID started, he lost 3 Marines to suicide in a month. And, there's a really amazing story. It's, if you look on YouTube, it's the why of PB Abbate, and it talks about Sergeant McLeod, who was a Marine that was supposed to get out of the military and then was severely wounded on that deployment and was one of the victims of suicide afterwards. So Tom Schumann was instructing at the Naval Academy at the time, so he had time to kind of dig into the research of why this was happening. And I mean, still the current statistic today is 17.6 veterans a day committing suicide. And he looked into, okay, well, there's resources, there's vet organizations that can help people. They just needed to get connected. The problem was a lot of the organizations at the time had barriers to entry. You had to check certain boxes to be able to go on whatever retreat or be involved with them. And 2 of the Marines that he lost didn't qualify for them. And, the qualifications are good, like served in special forces, injured in combat, wounded warriors, that sort of thing. But at the time, it was like, I think 90% of the resources were serving 2% of the military.
That's exactly what it was, yeah.
So the numbers weren't adding up. And so he created Patrol Base Abbate as a place for anyone who served, not how you served, what branch you were in, just because you served. So we have what we call our patrol base. It's in Thompson Falls, Montana, and we have 60 acres. It's the most beautiful country you've ever seen. And we fly over 200 vets a year up, or current service members, up for retreats that are based on interest-based retreats. So we have things like fly fishing, we have fight club that we actually talk about, hunt club, book club, all kinds of stuff, just to help people come out and find their tribe again. There's also local chapters scattered throughout the U.S. so that if you go to a retreat, you can still have your tribe back home. The local chapters do a monthly meetup and a quarterly service project. We do have one here in Northern Nevada as well. And the reason why I continue to be involved in that organization is it saved my life when I was struggling with suicidal ideation in 2023. I went to a retreat with them and it absolutely saved me. Like, there was people from that retreat that were following up and checking up on me just because we were friends, and I still talk to this day. It is a truly amazing organization We have one person who is running it right now. His name's Kevin Fallon. One-man show, booking all the flights, setting up all the retreats.
Oh my gosh.
Dedicates his whole life to it. I don't know what we're paying him, but we're probably getting a bargain.
Yeah.
And it's run by vets for vets. So there's no, you don't have the worry of if your money's going to that organization, is it actually helping people? Because every single cent that gets there is put towards helping more people get there and find their tribe.
And I saw that that civilians can even donate to this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not necessarily something that we are excluded from, but I think it'd behoove with all the organizations out there that this one seemed, I don't know, it seemed different to me, and I don't know enough about it, but watching those videos and watching people around the campfire or doing the fly fishing or the yoga or whatever, there's so many things. It was like everything seemed, the organization seemed so different to me than I'd ever seen.
It's very different. So every retreat, we do yoga every day. We have this amazing yoga instructor named Nick G, Yoga with Nick G on YouTube, I think. Army veteran who comes up and does veteran-friendly yoga because a lot of us have not stretched in a really long time. And it's challenging on our injured bodies, right? Mm-hmm. So we do that. We do a service project to literally build up our patrol base, which is what you do on a deployment. You're building up the patrol base that you're on, whether it's with sandbags or, infrastructure, you're bringing things to it. So we are literally building it every time. So we do yoga, we do a service project to help build the base up, and then we do a fireside chat every night. And that's where the real magic happens. But if you told veterans we were going to take them to Montana and sit around a fire and talk about things, they're probably not going to show up. So that's why we have the interest-based clubs like fly fishing. We'll bring out another organization that's called Project Healing Waters. We'll bring their guides out and we'll get equipment donated so that all the people who are on that have a really good fly fishing experience in Montana, which is some of the best fly fishing in the world, maybe aside from this area. But so it's a really special place. The other thing that we do on every retreat is we have a sandbag ceremony, and we fill a sandbag and write the name of somebody that motivates us to keep going or that we want to remember. And the whole patrol base is being lined literally sandbag by sandbag.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's an amazing organization, and it literally saves lives. They featured me in what they call the Save campaign. It's $15 a month, and it talked a little bit about my journey, which I'm sure we'll get into more here. But that's one that I can absolutely personally vouch for. That is doing the work, and it's going straight to the military members or veterans.
That sounds awesome. I think I was probably like 3 or 4 videos in, and I was like, man, I can't imagine how comforting, and releasing that must feel to be. I mean, it being in such a beautiful place, and
that's my happy place. We say that you go up there to kind of recharge your batteries, and I try to get up there as often as I can. I help run their cooking club now, so we have people who like cooking. We can get people up there to cook for the folks, and it's truly a special organization. And literally, I would not be here having this conversation with you if it wasn't for them.
Let's talk about your journey a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, you tell me what you're comfortable. How far you want to dig. You go ahead and lead that part.
Okay, so a little bit of background. I was a 911 dispatcher for a couple of years, and I don't know, they call it a shit magnet in the industry, but I was the person that I got all the suicidal callers, or the people who had already committed suicide. And so I got a really up close view of that from the other side. I also saw the process of what happens if you make that call. And I think, especially in the veteran community, what we need is our fellow veterans to help, right? And so that was really eye-opening for me. And I hadn't struggled with suicidal ideation while I was working in that role. I had kind of a crazy situation happen in my life. I had to move because of a stalking situation, and all of those things, and me feeling in danger for my daughter, and all that stuff kind of rolled into me having my own struggle with suicidal ideation. And from the other side of the telephone, I was like, I don't get it. All you got to do is just be until tomorrow. And it wasn't until I experienced it firsthand that I realized how challenging that battle really is. I also lost one of the best sergeants that I ever served with. His name was Christopher Parra. He lost the battle to suicide, and that really shook me because I was struggling with it at the same time. And it was very hard for me to talk about at first. Like when PB Abbate put me in their SAVE campaign, it was a marketing group that offered to like donate this time to put this campaign out, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll talk about it, whatever. And they had to condense down like an hour and 45-minute interview into 2 minutes. And things were meshed together that I was like, wait, but that's not how it all happened, right? And when that came out, I felt like I was standing naked in Times Square. Oh my gosh, I was a 911 dispatcher. I'm a Marine veteran, and I just told the whole internet that like I've struggled with this, and it was really scary for me. I think what I've realized is that when you're battling with that fight, the people associate suicide with weakness. The courageous thing to do is to reach out and ask for help and talk about it, because that's something that I think that more people need to do. I know if I had seen a video like the one that came out about me, I would have felt a little less alone, right? So, yeah, it's hard to talk about for sure because it's super personal, and there's still moments where I feel like I have imposter syndrome. But after a lot of therapy and a lot of other things that have helped me, organizations like Patrol Base Abbate and Healing Arenas, it's helped me realize the fight that other people have. And I might have a tool or a weapon I can give them to fight it a little bit better.
So, I guess one of the questions I have is, what makes you think? What's the reason that veteran suicide is so prevalent? Like, what is it about transitioning back to civilian life that is so hard and makes people, get in this place?
Yeah. I think one of the things is, at least for me and a lot of the veterans I've talked to, when you serve, it becomes part of your identity, and you're serving such a higher purpose and mission than yourself, right? And when I was doing it, like, I was working a national intelligence mission. I was helping a drone targeting cell build target packages on Taliban commanders and removing them from the battle space. That felt so important. And then transitioning to feel like, wow, I'm having a hard time getting a job. And then let's add on family stressors. And then let's add on, financial stressors, substance abuse, all kinds of things. I think, and then the other part is like, when you're in the military, you don't show any weakness. It's so frowned upon. So you become isolated. That's like the number one indicator of suicide is like isolation. So the isolation, and then if you're adding in, substance abuse and things like that, it becomes a really dark place. And the military is, especially the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps of the Mission Rifle Squad is to close with and destroy the enemy. Nothing about that is like, let's be soft and process our feelings, of course, and all that stuff, right? So you're not given the skills that you might need to combat that battle afterwards, at least when I was transitioning, which I've been out since 2013, so it's been a second, and they are changing some things. But that's a struggle. And then, like, I personally really struggled with the VA mental health process at the time that I tried it. I found a lot of good resources outside of that, like the Vet Center, which receives funding from the VA, but is not controlled by the VA.
That's huge.
And they get to do different modalities, things like EMDR, which is something that's really helped me through my healing journey. And they get to approach things from a different angle. And they were literally established by because Vietnam veterans didn't have trust in the VA. It's sad that that's the perception with the VA, but it's still a challenge. There's still a bunch of hoops to jump through. And like when I went through the mental health counseling process there, it was very standardized, not customized. And this guy would pull out a paper and say, okay, we're on week 5 and this is what we're doing. And it was all based on exposure therapy, and it wasn't helping me. It was making my symptoms a lot worse. So there's a lot of challenges that face veterans, but the thing that I've found that helps the most is veterans connecting with other veterans.
Okay. I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Finding your tribe, limiting the isolation, and when you find people that you can have real conversations with like this, it makes the world of difference.
Fantastic. So let's go back, because I can't get enough about PB Abbate. I think so you're going there, you're volunteering there in the cooking, you said?
So I run their cooking club, and then I run a local chapter in Northern Nevada.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Northern Nevada, because we're not in Reno.
We're not in Reno. We're in Gardnerville.
We're in Gardnerville.
And south end of Gardnerville. Yep.
Fantastic. But even people from Reno can come, I'm sure.
And we do things in Reno. It's just,
not stationed out of there.
But there's also like people in Elko and Fallon and Fernley that like Winnemucca that don't have these same resources. And that's why I wanted to make it the Northern Nevada chapter, because isolation is the worst enemy, right? So like, let's touch everybody that's up here.
So do you know my friend Stephen Carrera out in Fernley? Because he does a lot of work with like veteran organizations.
The name sounds familiar, but I'm not sure.
Arms? Okay, well, he's going to be, he is awesome, dude. He's one of my favorite humans.
I'll have to meet him.
You're going to have to meet him. But I think that he would be a great resource for some sort of outreach too, because he does like pancake breakfast Stephen, I'm sorry, but he does a lot of pancake breakfast. Like he does a lot of veteran specific stuff out there in Fernley. So I'll have to, and hopefully he watches the podcast. I don't know if he does, but
yeah,
great guy, hell of a dude. So
well, and like our monthly meetups, we are literally looking for cool shit to do. Pardon my French. I learned how to speak in the Marine Corps. We're looking for cool shit to do that will get people out of the house. Like, hey, you know a boat captain who's willing to take a bunch of vets on it who are going to cuss a lot?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're interested.
That'd be so much fun.
Hit us up on Instagram.
That's cool.
But we need things that are interesting and that make people go, like, get past all the noises in their, or voices in their head that are saying, I don't want to do that. It's going to be a bunch of bro vets. And PB Abbate is the opposite, despite being created amongst, like, in the Marine Corps world, like the most badass of badass people, right? it's not a pissing contest. We don't care what branch you were in. There may be shit talking because that's how the military rolls, right? But very light amount. And it's really about building your community. Like some of my best friends that I've met here, vet friends, are Air Force vets. Everybody rags on Air Force vets, right? But at this point, when you especially when you transition out, it's about fighting the enemy that we all have to fight together. Because it doesn't matter what branch you were in, suicide doesn't discriminate.
Correct. So do you think that there's been, I mean, so you said you got out in 2013, is that, okay. So have you seen any progress from the military side? I mean, to try to alleviate or suppress some of the stigmas, that come from people that are getting out?
I'm not close enough to like the active military world to know enough about the programs that are going on. Some improvements that I've seen is like when I went through, it was called TAPS class that you had to go through to transition out. And it was like a 3-day, here's how you write your resume and do an interview class. Okay. Now it's a week long.
Okay.
Like I used to do a lot of career coaching for veterans or transitioning military because I saw the struggle I had, and I worked as a recruiter and I had a lot of people apply and I would go, oh my gosh, like I know this person can do this job, but their resume is just not there. So like when I lived in the Fort Meade area, I created a special course for cleared people to go through, because the problem with like the current model that they have, I think it's called TRS or GPS right now. It's based on how do you help every member of the military know how to write a resume and interview and go for different jobs.
Some big global.
Yeah, it's very like umbrella. Let's cover everybody. So there needs to be a lot of specialization. There's been some improvements. I worked a lot in the defense contracting sector and recruited for that. When I transitioned, there was requirements for 4-year degrees on all the contracts, which is why I was unemployed for 6 months, even though I spoke Arabic and Pashto and had a TSSCI clearance, right? So there's been some changes in the way of like you can have years of experience in lieu of a degree. So that helps, because financial stress and employment stress is another thing that can add to all this, right? I don't know about as much about the mental health side of things. Pretty much the only reason why I'm on Facebook is to stay in touch with my military homies, and then I have a couple different Marine groups that I'm in, and I'll see people asking questions, and it seems like there's more resources when I was in. The field that I served in has an extremely high suicide rate, because at the time, if you had that level of clearance and you sought out counseling that wasn't marriage counseling, it could impact your clearance, which then impacts your job. And, if you're a contractor, that's literally how your family is surviving, right? So there was a lot of resistance to people reaching out for that kind of help. And I'll say, when I first started going through therapy, I was like, how do I talk about this? It's classified, and it's taken me a long time to learn how to be comfortable with talking about things, talking around things. Now I'm seeing that there's more resources as far as like mental health intervention if you're having it, where literally when I was serving, if somebody said they were having mental health issues, they were stigmatized, pushed out of the herd, so to say, right? And then they would get out processed, either from that special job specialty or the Marine Corps in general. And like, that's not the way to handle things.
No.
There is a lot that can be done before people transition. I think one of the beautiful things about like PB Abbate is it's open to current or former military service members, right? So the last few retreats I've been on, there's been people who are still serving whether it's active or reserve or guard, and they're surrounded by people who've gone through that transition and who can help them.
Probably is huge.
Yeah. The last retreat I was on, which was our hunt retreat, there were 2 career military members attending, transitioning out either at the senior enlisted or senior officer rank, and they're getting advice from people who transitioned out as junior enlisted 10 years ago because we've already gone on that patrol. We have some tips that we can give you for some lessons learned and some resources.
So what do you say to anybody that's listening to this podcast right now, any vet that's listening to this podcast right now that's struggling? I mean, what is your first piece of advice that you would be able to give them to get them on that path to healing?
There's so many things.
Tell me them all.
All right. Watch Brene Brown's YouTube video. She did a TED Talk. It's like 10 minutes long. It got like a bajillion views. She was like super embarrassed about it because she thought it was going to be small. It talks about shame and suppressing emotions. Like, she's literally a shame researcher. Okay. And she was doing all this research on shame and figured out that the people who have shame are like suppressing their emotions, right? So they don't feel that emotion. Well, when you suppress any emotion, you're suppressing all of them. You can't feel all of them. So it's a big hill to climb. Like, it's a Mount Everest-sized mountain to climb to process everything sometimes, especially if you've been numbing it for a while. So reach out and get some resources and start some therapy. If you don't want to go to the VA, I get it. I don't go to the VA either. I probably shouldn't say that, but hey, if that's like the resource that's around you and it's working for you, and again, I haven't tried it since like 2017, so hopes are they've improved some things.
I'm sure it's way better now.
Go to the vet center. Reach out to your local DAV or VFW and see what resources they have. Or literally just show up to an event like Patrol Base Abbate or Healing Arenas. Just take a chance and go out there. It's not going to kill you. It might save your life, though.
Very important.
And it takes courage to do that. It takes courage to be vulnerable, because that's the opposite of what we're taught in the military.
So before we got in touch, I was actually talking to Julie Baker at Healing Arenas.
Okay.
A mutual friend knows her, and they were like, you're going to want to have her on the show. And so I had asked her, and she got kind of, I wouldn't say nervous, but I could definitely tell her maybe it's because she was coming to the house. I don't know what it was, but she was like, well, I'm going to bring somebody with me. And I want somebody to be able to, like, somebody that's in the program. So what I want to do is I want to transition to talking about Healing Arenas and Julie Baker, because her stories, I mean, what you'd said. So you tell me about Julie Baker and Healing Arenas.
All right. Julie Baker is a real one, and she could absolutely fill a podcast with knowledge and nuggets of wisdom that would help a lot of people. So she is such a strong woman. She worked on the track as a trainer in the 80s and continuing on from there on the track, like thoroughbred racetrack in California, which is not an easy life, especially for a woman, right? And she had an incident happen that made her want to do EMS. She had someone that was close to her who was like care flighted out from her property, I think. I'll let her tell that story, but that experience propelled her to do EMS for 15 years in Stockton. So it's like farmers insurance.
Wow,
we know a few things because we've seen a few things. Yeah. And she swore that when she was a trainer on the track that she would help the horses. And she basically took all of these experiences that she's had in her life, helping the horses, wanting to help first responders and veterans. She's from a big military family. Her dad's a veteran. I think she's got a grandson in the Marine Corps right now. And she created Healing Arenas. So it is a really amazing organization that uses all off-the-track thoroughbreds to do resilience training, which is a fancy word for therapy, but people don't like the T word sometimes.
We don't call it that.
Yeah, we don't talk about the T word. So we do resilience training for veterans and first responders. And it's a really special program. I got to go through what's called her Stable Vets program, the veterans program. There's 3 different sections. So Ops A is the real on the ground resilience training. And you don't need horse experience. You just need the courage to show up. And it is really beautiful what these horses reveal. Like, horses are like mirrors. I have a lot of horse experience. I've had 5 of my own on my own property before I relocated. And for me, the biggest thing that they taught me was like emotional regulation in a stressful situation. Really important, right? For this sort of conversation. But so if I have a really reactive horse that I just brought in and I'm trying to get them to calm down, I have to calm down first. I have to like calm myself down in the middle of the hurricane that's happening and bring myself down so I can help them. And they're like mirrors to us. So like if I calm down, they calm down. And they're like, wait, what are we freaking out about?
Yeah, why are we here?
So that was the journey that I had with horses even before I got into healing arenas. But another vet friend invited me to go through this program. And I messaged Julie because, like, I'm a horse person, and OPSA, the description, had something to do with, like, basic horse handling on the ground. And I messaged her and I said, oh, like, I've had a lot of horses, like, I've bred horses, I live in a barn right now and wake up and feed horses at 6 a.m. Do I need to go through this OPSA thing? And she said, yeah, there's a therapeutic aspect. So I was like, okay, challenge accepted. I kind of like, now that I've entered this journey, when I notice like not a weakness, that's not the right word, but like a pressure point of where I'm like, oh, that's sensitive. I need to go heal that right now. I dive in head first, which it takes a long time to get there, but I just want to find peace and joy in my life, right? So anything I can do to get to that. So I went to this OPSA. It's an 8-week session, and that's what she does with the first responders and the veterans. And it's all on the ground with these horses who are off the track thoroughbreds, which if you're a horse person or not, they're known as like crazy thoroughbreds, or the acronym is OTTB, off the track thoroughbreds, and they have this bad reputation. And these horses just reflect so much more back at you, and they're like a big metaphor for what's going on in your life. So I went into this program. There's people who've literally never touched a horse, let alone haltered a horse. And so we go out the first day and she's like, all right, go catch 2 horses. And I was like, okay, let me show you how to put a halter on here, bud. Like, and I was thinking I was going to have it all figured out. And through the progression of the sessions, I was watching, the people who don't have a lot of horse experience are like, whoa, that's a big animal. And they're working on okay, I got to calm down right now, peace. And, they've gotten all kinds of different lessons from it. We talk about it at the beginning of every session and at the end of every session, like, so what came up for you there? And hearing what other people were getting from that was really profound. But for me, I was watching these people who hadn't handled horses before, and these horses are like walking all over them and like rubbing their head against them and stuff like that, which I'm like, get off of me. Like, that's not okay. You stand over there. I'm here. This is my bubble. Don't come in it. So I was watching these other vets get walked all over. Not literally. It's very safe. They're very trained therapy horses.
That's good.
But it's
I don't want that.
Yeah, no, it's just like, for me as a horse person, I was like, I would not let a horse do that to me.
Yeah.
And so I was watching these people and watching the horses interact with them, and I realized, oh my gosh, like, have boundaries with horses that I don't have with humans. Like, I know exactly what to do when this horse goes too far and what to say to it, and then we're good. But when it comes to humans, I don't have that yet. So that's like the kind of profound realization that I got from it. Yeah.
So what, now that you're kind of looking in at healing arenas, what kind of transitions do you see from the vets themselves? I mean, what, are you watching them, like that weight being lifted off them?
Well, because I rode under a trainer before I joined the military. Everywhere after I joined, I rode horses. There's always horses around, so I'd always seek them out and ride wherever I went. And so I knew how to get the horses to do the things that Julie's asking us to do, which are an obstacle course or whatever. So I knew how to get the horses to do that. But watching other people go through that process, like she did this one, if you're a horse person, it's lunging a horse. But Julie says, all right, so, and she has 2 horses in the arena, and she's like, all right, so here's this really long rope, and I want you to get the horses to walk around you in a circle at the end of the rope. And watching people who've like never handled horses before, I was like, oh my gosh, just like, it's body language, and you got to do this and do that. And I knew the answer to that, right? But watching them discover it on their own is such a cool thing for them and the horse, because they're discovering it inherently, and something where it's very healthy and beautiful for the horses. And then for me, it was more of watching them go through that journey that was helping me realize all the things, right? Yeah. So there's like, it doesn't matter where you are in the horse experience world. If you've never touched one or you've been riding your whole life, there's really beautiful lessons to be learned. The other side of it is we get horses in off the track, which all they know how to do is run and turn right, or run and turn left in America. In Dubai, they go right.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Like it screwed that horse up real bad by taking it overseas.
One of the Kentucky Derby racers this year was only raced overseas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was Japan bred. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Didn't see that one.
I don't remember how he did, but but like we all went and watched it together, of course, because it's a big deal. But so we get these horses that are off the track, and there's this massive overlap and metaphor for the horses. They're really valuable when they're young, and when their bodies aren't broken, and when their minds aren't broken, right? And then the minute they get broken, they're discarded. So we have a horse, our newest horse that came in is, we named him Nimitz after Admiral Chester Nimitz. He's built like an aircraft carrier, I think. So it's kind of a fitting name. And she needed a military horse name. Like, they're all going to have military names at the end of this. But so we get this horse in who was sold as a yearling for $2.6 million and was literally given away to her program because he was useless.
Wow.
So what a metaphor for the military, right? You're valuable as long as your body's not broken and your mind's not broken and you don't have any issues and you're running good. But the minute that stops, that Nimitz has a cracked sesamoid that he's taken like a year of rehab, and then we got him. So we now have this horse that we get to help. And so the horses either stay and they're in the therapy program, or if they're not suitable for that, we retrain them and rehome them to somewhere where we figure out what the horse likes. Very similar for veterans. Like, that's another thing. How many of us have given ourselves the opportunity to figure out what we like, what makes us happy? Very few, I think. It took me a long time to get to it, so I'm assuming other people have that challenge. But yeah, there's this massive overlap with the horses and especially the veterans, and the same with first responders. And it's a really beautiful program that she has going, and I highly recommend it.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So I know they have a Instagram. I found that.
Yep.
How do we get hooked up with Healing Arenas if people are interested?
Yeah, I believe she's on Facebook or Instagram, Facebook and Instagram. Message her there, or she has a website as well. You can message her. And she's always setting up new cohorts. If a first responder unit wants to go through it, there's continuing education credits that they can get for it. She came from that world. She gets that there's things that you have to do every year. So resilience training, you can get continuing education credits for it.
That's fantastic.
Which is beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and then, like I've worked in the horse world for a long time and worked with rescues and all kinds of stuff. And the challenge is always money and how do you pay for the horses? Well, the horses are all off the track thoroughbreds, so they're provided for by the Thoroughbred Aftercare Foundation. So now we're literally fundraising because we don't have a barn or a tack room. We're using her trailer, which is great. I've done that a lot in my life, but we're trying to build a barn so it's easier for people to get. Most of the people ride Western. I'm a dressage rider, so I ride English primarily, but we're fundraising for that so we can put a shed out there or a barn out there and make it a little more accessible for people with some injured bodies, just like the horses have.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then also, let's talk about how a veteran looking for the support can get into getting in contact with PB Abbate.
PB Abbate. So on the website, which is pbabate.org, you can go on there. There's a Join Our Tribe link, which is what you're doing. You're literally joining the tribe because you're going to have friends forever. When you do that, it'll use like your ID Me credentials.
Okay.
So like it helps. I don't think in the history there's ever been like a stolen valor person. That would not be a wise decision.
Wouldn't that be something? I know, that'd be something.
But it'll use your ID Me credentials, and then you can list what clubs you're interested in and get connected that way.
Okay.
And then it'll also get you in contact. We use Slack now because we were using all group chats and it gets to be too much. So we use Slack, and it'll give you some instructions to get in touch with like the nearest local chapter to you. So you can go out to whatever events they're having, and then you can apply to go on the retreats with them.
How cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so you have the local chapter, and you're taking that
Northern Nevada chapter,
running that pig, and so what does that look like as far as getting involved with that?
Yeah, so as a local chapter, we do a monthly meetup and a quarterly service project. So my goal for this chapter is to do a joint, what we call a warrior weekend with Healing Arenas. So if you don't have the time off work or the financial ability, which the retreats are free, we fly you up there, you don't have to pay for anything. But let's say you can't give that time commitment, we can do like a 3-day retreat here. And my goal is to do it with Healing Arenas and do like an expedited retreat with them and get through the Ops A section with them.
Gotcha.
So you can either come out to our monthly meetups. I always publish them on our Instagram, which is PBA Northern Nevada spelled out. And we also publish it in some of the local veteran groups.
Okay.
And like our service project that we did this quarter was building a fire pit for Healing Arenas. So our monthly meetup for May was on Memorial Day, which for a lot of veterans is not a fun day. It's probably one of my least favorite days of the year, right? And we did a joint event with Julie, and we did like a potluck barbecue. I'm surprised we had food to feed the people that were there. We had a better turnout than I thought we were going to get. Good. And we did an exercise with the horses, and then we did a PB Abbate style fire pit at the end of the night at the fire pit that we built. So there's ways to connect. If you're not near one, we can get you connected with a person to talk to. You can reach out to me. I'm available, but like it's all about just getting people connected and helping. It helps you whether it's through Healing Arenas or PB Abbate or any other vet organization. The the goal is to get your firing team and your squad back that you lost when you got out of the military.
So you have, and I think I want to make sure that, there's finding, you alluded to it earlier, finding what works for you. Okay. And if it is the VA, not to steer away from it. I kind of alluded to it's like the VA shit, and I just, the Vietnam generation really does have a really bad taste in their mouth with the VA. So, with friends that I know that I worked with or whatever. But so anyways, I didn't want to say that, and I want to make that clear that if that's working for you, that and like you're saying, it may be even better than when you gave it a shot. So just finding a resource and talking to somebody, like you said, it makes more sense to find somebody that's gone through the fight, that's in the same battle.
When, like, the VA itself is kind of built the opposite of how every military member is wired. The squeaky wheel gets the grease there. And in the military, you're taught to follow the chain of command, right? So you have to kind of go against the grain of that. But if you talk to another veteran who's navigated that process, then they know, like, hey, this is what you have to say to your primary care provider. Like the Community Care Act that came out during President Trump's first presidency. That's the word. Sorry. That changed a lot of things for me. So I was able to get a hip surgery, a knee replacement. I get massages through community care. Those are things that I could have never paid for on my own. And I know I sound like I'm ragging on the VA a lot, but it's like I get to see real doctors is what I call it, like people who do this all day long and that's their specialty. So learning how to navigate that to get that as your solution can be challenging. And if you're a veteran who's like just trying to navigate that and you get hit with a bunch of no's, you're going to say, well, fuck this. I don't want to do this anymore. You guys aren't helping me. But the people who've gone before you, which means transition before you, regardless of the rank they were, might have some answers for you. The VA has improved a lot of things. Like they have this, when I moved to Tennessee, they had it, and now they have it in Reno. They have this program where it's like a chiropractor, a physical therapist, and an acupuncturist all in a team together that help you manage your pain and things like that. That's humongous. That did not exist when I transitioned out. And I've lived a lot of years in pain. But anyways, I'm getting off on a VA tangent. The things that have helped me, number one, prioritizing fixing my body. We're always taught in the military to just suck it up and keep going. It's not your job anymore when you transition out. You have medical insurance that will pay for everything for you depending on your rating, or some of it for you if you're at a really low rating, which, by the way, the PACT Act came out that covers Iraq and Afghanistan for veterans for burn pit issues. And you can probably get an increase that you've been needing for a long time. You might think you might not want that money, or it's taking away from other veterans. That's not the truth. The VA has a budget for every military person who's ever served to either be paid 100% disability or death benefits. So I don't want to get that, or I'm not disabled. When I got my first disability rating, I've already talked about kind of like my imposter syndrome. I had a knee injury before I joined. I was med boarded in, knee surgery again that wasn't successful while I was in. I was messed up, right? And I left with a 60% rating, and I didn't feel like I deserved that because I had all my limbs and I thought my mind intact. But that financial security, which is tax-free, has saved me and my child during like a really challenging time, right? So that can provide some financial stress alleviation. Mental health has helped a lot. So therapy, I found a good therapist that I was lucky enough to have my own private insurance outside of the VA at the time. So I found a therapist in Carson City named Dr. Christopher DeGraff, who's saved my life so many times over. Like, if I had to pay that guy a sum of money for what he's given me, I could never repay him. He got me connected to hippie shit, is what I call it.
I'm glad we got to talk about the hippie shit.
The hippie shit. Yeah. So the hippie shit is, for him, it started with breathing exercises. The first time he told me, I was like, that's not going to work. And then I tried it and I was like, oh, well, this helps if I'm feeling really elevated. Which then led to meditation and yoga and things like that. Mindfulness, things like that, like this amazing, knowledgeable therapist kept hinting at, hey, maybe you should try this. And it took me, it's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Healing Arenas reference. But sometimes you just have to move the trough a little closer, make it a little more appealing, suggest it enough times, and it'll happen, right? So those things have really saved me a lot. And then being involved in organizations like this, like Healing Arenas and Patrol Base Abbate, that's made such a difference. Like, the reason why I started the cooking club is I was like, how can I get up here more often?
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I'll come cook for 30 people. I don't care. Or 20 people that eat like 35 people. But that's where I go to recharge my batteries, and realizing that sometimes you need that. And like, I have nothing but respect for military spouses and military families. Like, my daughter, I'm a single mom, almost full time. She spends the summers and Christmas break with her dad because we're geographically separated. But I apologize to her constantly because I'm like, damn, I'm so sorry you have to deal with all my bullshit. Like, you're dealing with a parent with PTSD and like struggles that go along with that. And our families are the best thing that we can ever do. But sometimes it's a stressor. So sometimes, like, if you can disconnect from that for a sec and go recharge your batteries and come back better for them, it's worth it, right? And that's what PV Abbate allows you to do. Fantastic. Go up to, who doesn't want to go to Montana for a week for free?
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Looks cool, and I'll just live vicariously through the YouTube videos or that, the videos I found online. You know, it looks beautiful.
It's amazing.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that you feel like we should have?
I think the point where I am in my healing journey, which everybody has their own and their own paths, but I think the thing that veterans have to give themselves permission to find is peace. And who better to find peace than somebody who knows war? You can't know peace unless you've known war, right? Truly. So seeking out peace and then seeking out joy. There's this show called Mission Joy, which is the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, who was a religious leader during the apartheid movement in South Africa. They're like best buddies, and they hang out and talk about joy. And it's one of the most profound things I've ever seen, because that's one thing that the military doesn't preach. They'll do like Mando fun days or your voluntary fun days, but they're not voluntary, you're voluntold, right? Now that you're out and that you've served your country, it is your duty to the people that are no longer here to experience it to find peace and joy in your life. And that's the opposite of the military, because when you're in the military, you're serving a mission. And that mission has nothing to do with peace and joy. Maybe it's hearts and minds sometimes, but it's not about your peace and joy. And I think every veteran should make it their life's dedication to find those things. And like that Mission Joy show, one of the things is in finding joy is serving, having a purpose. So find your purpose, find what makes you feel good inside, and seek that out more in your life. Like, there's so much stress right now in this country about finances and the government, and all kinds of things going on. But if you can just make even 5 minutes of joy or peace for yourself, it's worth it. Mm-hmm. And then expand that time as much as you can.
Good.
You know, a little hippie shit.
A little bit of hippie shit. Okay, so let's get. This will be your opportunity to also call out to where we can find those websites again, those organizations. How do we get
Sure.
all of them?
Okay, so Patrol Base Abbate, pbabate.org. They're also on Facebook or Instagram. Go apply if you're interested in going on a retreat. The applications for their retreats, they're not full. It's a very grassroots grown organization, grown by veterans for veterans. So apply if you want to go, and be honest about what you're going through in the questions, because that plays into you getting selected to go on a retreat. And again, it is free. You just have to have the courage to go.
Yeah.
And like that organization specifically, it's not gonna be the bro vet pissing contest that you might have in your mind. And it's a really beautiful experience. The Northern Nevada chapter of Patrol Base Abbate is on Instagram and Facebook. It's at PBA Northern Nevada. You can message us there if you're interested in resources. We also have a Slack channel set up on the PB Abbate Slack, which you'll get some instructions to fill that out. You can always reach out to me, Destiny Strong, if you need some resources. And then healingarenas.org. Reach out to Julie Baker. She's on Facebook and Instagram as well. And definitely reach out to that, because it's worth it for you to be here.
So I wrote this monologue, and I don't really do this, but I really put a little bit of time into this one.
After that intro, I'm excited for this.
We'll see how it goes. So first of all, I want to thank you, not only for your service, but for your strength and your resolve.
Honor. Thank you.
What you brought to the table today is more than insight. You brought hope, and you're bringing change. So thank you. To every veteran listening to this podcast and to this message, we see you, we hear you, and we honor you. Not just through words, through the month of May, but with action. You've carried burdens that many of us will never understand. You stood watch when others slept. And if you're struggling, please know this, that there's no shame in reaching out. There's only strength. Whether it's working with retired racehorses, taking a break in silence and noise, or making a phone call to a brother or sister in arms, healing is possible. And it's waiting for you. To the rest of us, we must show up. We must listen, share, and support, because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply remind somebody that you're not alone and you're not enough. We end May with gratitude, but we carry the fight for mental health forward every single day. There's help and there's hope. So if you know someone and you love somebody and they're in crisis, please do not wait. Call 988 and press 1, or text 838-255. The help is out there, and so are we. And then remember, you can find me on all platforms at Bourbon Ballistics Podcast. So please, we have no glass. Let's just get a little, real quick.
Oh,
I tried.
goodness gracious.
Okay, so please raise your glass with me to destiny, to every warrior still fighting the fight in the quiet strength it takes to find your way back home. May we all carry a little more compassion and a whole lot more resolve. Until next time, this is Bourbon Ballistics Podcast. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and please stay in the fight. Cheers.
Cheers.